the common scholarly understanding is that Yehovah, or in English Jehovah, and I think in Spanish Yehovah. Right? How do you say
Yehovah.
it? Yehovah. So the common understanding is that that is a Christian misunderstanding. They call it an impossible hybrid. That it's a combination, they say, of the vowels of the word Adonai and the letters of the tetragrammaton of God's name, Yud He Vav He. The problem is that's not true. First of all, we have it from Jewish sources. So, I call this the stupid Christian hypothesis, right? The assumption is there was a Christian, we know his name was Galatinus. In 1518, he was the first one, as far as we know, to introduce the pronunciation Yehovah into the Christian world. Okay. And that's where you get Jehovah in English. Okay. But we have it in Jewish sources that predate that, right? And so it's not that, and then also their assumption is that Galatinus just didn't know that the Jews pronounce the name as Adonai. Well, that's not true. In the actual context in which Galatinus discusses the pronunciation Yehovah, he says, well, the Jews read it Adonai, but if you take the vowels the way they are, it's not, the name would be read Yehovah. So he was well aware of that. So this uninformed Christian hypothesis is a myth. It's not based on any actual evidence from history. Yahweh is the common understanding of most scholars today. That was introduced in 1699 by a man named Gilbert Genebrard, who is another Christian author. Now, what did he base it on? So there is a statement by a Christian church father named Theodoret of Cyrus. Some people pronounce his name as Theodoret of Cyrus. I don't know what you say in Spanish. Theodoro, maybe. I don't know. So he was a church father who, around the year 450 CE or AD, he wrote that the Jews don't pronounce the name, the Tetragrammaton, but the Samaritans call it Yahweh. And so scholars have taken this supposed Samaritan pronunciation of the name and then said, well, that fits our theology. What's our theology? They say, what does the name of God mean? So we know from the Torah, Exodus 3:14, God says, Ehyeh asher ehyeh, which means I am that which I am, or I will be that which I will be. And then the very next verse, he further says to Moses that the name Yud He Vav He is his eternal name. And that's been understood for 1,000 years at least. Actually, goes back a lot longer. That
this is Exodus chapter 3, verse
3:14 and then 15.
Yes, because the context there is when he asks, okay, if the people ask me who sent me,
right, what name should I give them?
Yeah, so the topic there is the name.
Oh, it's absolutely the name, and it's the first introduction to Moses formally of the name. Moses may have known that name. Maybe he knew it from the forefathers. It's a whole separate discussion. Yes. But the first time God revealed his name to him was at the burning bush, Exodus 3:14 and 15. And in 14 he says, I am that which I am, or I will be that which I will be. And the next verse he says, his name is Yud He Vav He. And it's obvious, I think, to anybody reading this in Hebrew, that verse 14 gives you the explanation of verse 15. Right? Ehyeh is not the name per se, it is an explanation of the name. So there's a principle of Hebrew linguistics, really of all Semitic languages, that every noun, adjective, and verb is based on a three-letter root. And the three-letter root of I will be, Ehyeh, is the same as the three-letter root, clearly, of Yud He Vav He. Correct. And already we find we find it in Jewish sources, we find it in the New Testament, in the book of Revelation, and we actually find it also in Samaritan sources.
Wait, but when you say Jewish sources, which time we're talking about? The manuscripts?
Well, we're going to get to the manuscripts first.
Okay.
First, I'm talking about what the name means, okay? Without even talking about what the pronunciation means. We'll talk about that in a minute. So we have in Jewish sources, in the New Testament and Samaritan sources, we have an explanation of the name as he that was, he that is, and he that will be. Right? Now, how could it be in all three of those sources? And the answer is that this was something that was known in the Second Temple period. Okay. Right? Otherwise, how would it be that Samaritans, Jews, and the book of Revelation all have the same explanation? I guess you could say it was revealed to John at Patmos, right? But as a scholar, I want to take a different approach and say, what is the common source that all these three different streams have? And that's that there's information that's known in the Second Temple period, right? That's where we can for sure trace it back to. So the name means Hayah Hoveh Yehyeh, he that was, he that is, he that will be, and we get that from Exodus 3:14. And how the three-letter root ties into verse 15. So that's what it means. That really isn't disputed in medieval Jewish sources. It's not really disputed in like I said, it's the Book of Revelation. It's in Samaritan sources. In 1699, Gilbert Genebrard comes along. He's a Christian, and he says, "Wait a minute. The name of God should mean Creator. And how do we get from the word Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh to Creator? Well, Hebrew has 7 conjugations, or binyanim, and Eheyeh Asher Eheyeh in Exodus 3:14, I will be that which I will be, is in the Kal conjugation, the simplest conjugation. He says, if it's going to mean Creator, we have to put it in the He-Feel, which is the causative conjugation. And then he goes from Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, which is Hayahoveh to Yahweh.
Okay, when you say, just for my audience, when you say Hayahoveh, you means
he was, he is, he will be.
He will be.
He is to come, or he will
correct.
be.
This is so what you're saying, just for my audience, okay? What you're saying is that the name, the meaning of the name will include all these 3 statements.
The name comes from those 3 statements.
The name comes from those 3 statements.
And like I said, that's in Jewish sources, it's in the Book of Revelation, and it's in Samaritan sources. 3 very diverse types of sources.
Okay, because you have been repeating that.
Hayahoveh, he that was, he that is, he will be. That's the meaning of the name, and that's what Exodus 3:14 is telling us. And look, you have to know a little bit of Hebrew, which you know. So we've got 4 prefixes of the future form, right? We have the Aleph, Yud, Tav, Nun, and they call it Eitan letters, or in English I say Ethan, right? So the Eheyeh, I will be, is I, and then he calls himself Yud, he that is, right? The Yud of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh is he that will be, he that is. So Genebrard comes along and he says, no, we don't want it in the Kal, like everybody's understood it up until now. It's got to mean Creator based on our theology. And then he comes up with Yahweh, which in English became Yahweh.
Okay. Let me explain that. The thing is that Kal, that voice, if we can put it this way, the voice that he is proposing is the one active and causative voice.
Absolutely.
Because he wanted to give the impression that God is causing, that he's actively creating.
Even more. Well, we all agree he's creating.
Yes.
They wanted it to mean. They wanted his name to mean "He that creates." So we went from his name meaning, which we get from Exodus 3:14, "I am, he that was, he that is, he that will be." We go from that, the Kal conjugation, to a causative, the He-Feel, for theological reasons. Now his name means "He that causes to be," and therefore Creator. So this is a completely theological construct.
And how the sounds when you put it in the He-Feel?
Yahweh. Yahweh. Right? Americans say Yahweh, but it's Yahweh. Okay? And it would have been Yahweh.
It's important you mention Yahweh because this is something very established.
Oh no, it's a scholarly consensus.
Yeah, when you say something different, you are if you are in a religious country, you're a sinner.
Well, I mean that's
I'm just telling you.
That seems like a theological statement. I don't know, but
Yahweh is very
it's a scholarly consensus, and the Anchor Bible Dictionary calls it a scholarly guess. So what's the guess based on? First, there's this theology, he that causes to be, and then we have the statement of Theodoret in 450, who says the Samaritans pronounce it Yahweh, and they said, oh, that fits perfectly with what we think from our theology. There's a few other points that I'm not going to go into right now. Clement of Alexandria is really the third piece of evidence. That's a whole separate discussion.